Jared Diamond's theory was that different civilizations arose at various speeds because of their physical geography, not racial or biological differences. The development of the Middle East is a perfect example of this. The Middle East is, in many ways, responsible for the rise of civilization, accountable for not only the advancement of cities, empires, and the written language. The Middle East developed something much more necessary in an agricultural society: food production. Because they were able to gain a head start in the rise of civilization, the Middle East deserves an A. Approximately 11,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers in the Middle East became the first to domesticate crops and animals in a land called the Fertile Crescent, which had frequent rainfall, making it perfect for growing grains and raising herds of sheep and goat. Hunter-gatherers came across this piece of land while in search for food and began gathering grains they found growing. They scattered the spare grains across the soil in order to grow more. Farming at the time was a whole new phenomenon. Before then, the hunter-gatherers, as the name implies, hunted animals and gathered food, and when the resources were exhausted, they traveled to find more. They now could settle in communities, build stronger houses, raise animals, and grow food in nearby lands. Even though the Fertile Crescent was ideal for developing a civilization, large parts of the Middle East struggled to grow crops because of inadequate rainfall. Around 5000 BC, farmers had eventually overcame this challenge by initiating an irrigation system, which resulted in an abundance of agriculture. In 9000 BC, sheep were domesticated in the Middle East, the first animals known to have been domesticated as a source of food ever. Domesticating sheep was a major success for the Middle East, as they mature quickly and can be bred at a very young age. They are prized primarily for their thick, resourceful wool, and other valued byproducts include milk, sheepskin, and lamb. In addition, their bodily waste is high in nutrients, and the fertilizer and fuel it provides can be almost as efficient as cow dung. The only downside is that sheep cannot bear loads or pull any kind of machinery, which means they are not helpful when it comes to manual labor. Zoonosis is a disease or infection that can be transmitted from animal to human, with brucellosis being the most prevalent bacterial zoonosis in the world. The infectious disease remains endemic in the Middle East, with tens of thousands new cases annually. But because they were able to make such an advance in technology very early on, they were able to use this disease to their advantage deterring potential enemies. The land between Tigris and Euphrates is commonly referred to as the cradle of civilization, because the civilizations that developed there were the first the world had ever seen. The power obtained by the early civilizations in the Fertile Crescent was due to the life-sustaining waters of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. If you analyze the characteristics of a civilization, you will find that one of the primary requirements is an abundance of food. From this, we can infer that people settled in Mesopotamia to utilize the food-providing waters of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The earliest known emmer wheat dates back to 8500 BC, which came from the Fertile Crescent, where farmers grew tall wild grasses, an early form of barley, and early forms of wheat called emmer and inkhorn, all of which produced large, delicious, and nourishing seeds. Wheat was, and continues to be, very helpful, as it is the most adaptable of all of the domestic crops. A positive climate with frequent rainfall and flooding in the Fertile Crescent allowed the Middle East to develop into a perfect location to grow food and feed animals, which they were then able to domesticate. After this development of basic food production, Middle Easterners were able to easily form a society. They were also able to develop diseases which gave them an advantage when in battle. As a result of people in the Fertile Crescent being the first to develop food production and animal domestication, they were able to advance in deeper realms of development. And just think how crazy it would be without these early settlers. I mean, we probably wouldn't even have iPhones.